Zombies are gray. My older sister sat on the back of the motorcycle. I waved goodbye. My mother, I'm sure, had a stomach ache. She had marked out their trip on a bulletin board. She reminded my sister she was only 22. That was too young in her eyes to be traveling overseas. My sister's boyfriend, who was quick-witted, told my mother it was going to be all right. They didn't need somebody to take care of them. They had each other. He also reminded her they wouldn't be gone forever. But that wasn't the truth. The truth was, I would never see my sister or her boyfriend again. The next day, we were on a back road perpendicular with the highway. My dad's idleness about it was bothering me. He never took the back road. My mother sat next to him, silent as well. We reached a cross street and we made a left. This road was dark. The night sky was omitted by the tree line. We drove for what seemed an extended time. Then we made another left. This road was more of a path. Just dirt, no pavement. The car gracefully came to a stop next to the foot of a hill. There was a hole in the rocks, and I could see some grass and brush. It looked like bedding. My mom turned to me. We're getting out. There's something your father wants you to see. Okay, I got out of the car. My father went into the trunk and pulled out what looked like a leash and a collar. What was that for? I asked. My mother took my hand. Try not to make much noise, she whispered. I nodded. We moved to the opening. Inside was a man. He was all alone. My father reached in and lifted his head up. He slipped the collar around the man's neck. I think he's sick. The man moaned. We're going to get you help, my dad said. The man began to moan louder. Can we? I questioned. What? My mother asked. Help him, I replied. The look on my face must have been priceless. Why not call the police? You know your father doesn't trust them to do their job. My dad nodded. I think he was abandoned. I saw him this morning. He was alone then. We'll take him to the hospital. With the man in the trunk, we headed off. He didn't make a sound. No one did. What were we doing, I thought. As we neared the city, we stopped for a red light. Next to us, on the right, there was a man on the sidewalk. He was wearing a sombrero and banging on a tambourine. He didn't look well. I saw blood on his shoulders. Several mosquitoes flew about, one landing on the man's arm, but he didn't appear to notice. I watched suspiciously. The man's clumsiness showed as he stumbled on the pavement. His movement was merciless, as if he had no regard for his own safety. His clothing did appear to be grimy and stained. Maybe it wasn't blood, but food stains. I found myself overwhelmed with a feeling of pity. The light turned and we pulled away. Suddenly, the car screeched to a stop. I was tossed forward in my seat. I hit my nose on the headrest. There was a man in the road, in front of us, waving his arms. He was right in the middle of the road, blocking our path. He came to the driver's side. My dad opened the window. Help, my car ran out of gas, the man said. Relax, my dad told him. I knew it was running low, then it stalled. These people, they came from nowhere. They attacked me. One of them snapped their arm, broke the windshield. I got out and ran. You gotta help me. My dad looked at my mother. We're going to the hospital already, my mother offered. Dad motioned to the back door. Get in. This illustrated the type of people my parents were. They had a conscience. The man got in and closed the door. I could have walked to the gas station. It's only blocks away. But those people. I left the keys in the ignition. The car's going to be stolen. He was in shock. We turned a corner and saw a group of people. But they weren't people. They were pale gray. My dad cut the wheel to avoid them. The man we picked up panicked. There's more of them. Our car swerved up onto the sidewalk, taking out a street sign and a fence before coming to a stop on someone's lawn. We got out and started to run toward the house. My dad stopped and went back to the car. My mother grabbed his arm, pulling him in the direction of the house. The man we picked up and I were already up the stairs and banging at the front door. Help, please help, the man called out. Meanwhile, my dad had gotten the keys from the ignition and was fumbling to get the trunk lock open. The crowd of gray figures made their way over, moaning and crying like hungry babies. "Dad," I called as the trunk popped open. The man inside, who had kept quiet, sprang and lifted and lunged toward my father. He never saw it coming. The collar was still around the man's neck as he dragged my father to the ground, biting him. Not just biting, but consuming his source of protein. My mother screamed and tried to pull the man off. The others had reached the car by now. They reached my mother. I watched as she was buried in a sea of red hands pulling at her, pulling her apart, clothing and flesh shredded, her screams gurgles. A light from inside the house lit the porch. The door was open. The man we picked up grabbed me by the shoulders. "Come on," he shouted. Panic never left his voice. It was the only way I knew him. "Wait, where?" It was all I could say. "I don't want to leave you out here," he said. Something was compelling me to move. It occurred to me I had no idea where I was. Was something threatening me? I was in shock, shaking uncontrollably. An old woman came from behind. "Get inside now," she ordered. She and the man helped me into the house. 2 other men boarded up the door. The hammering of nails played like music. Then some of the lights shut off. The old woman, the man we picked up, and the older man stood with me. All held sharp items. The moans and scratches from outside grew louder. They were hungry. They wanted us. We weren't ready to forfeit our lives to the horde that gathered at the front door. The amount of them had multiplied compared to what was only there a few minutes ago. Why did I feel stripped of my sanity? Was it offered up to someone or something? Was there a way that this could be a bad dream? I willed myself to wake up and be deposited into my own warm, soft bed. I was living. Did my sister and her boyfriend make it? The boards began to give, and I could see... The boards began to give out, and I could make out bloodied hands pushing forward through the barrier. The wood cracked and splintered. Some of the hands were twisted, others missing fingers. As the doors burst open, I could see my father. He was gray.